My scalp is still burning when I turn around and see his claws still curled in the air, still holding a few strands of my hair like a trophy. The mess hall has gone quiet. 40 different species are watching me, and I can feel my own heartbeat in my throat. My name is Mara Whitfield. I am 17 years old, and I am one of the only human students at the Halvorn Academy, a school built for children from 11 different worlds across the galaxy. I came here because my parents believed in the exchange program. They said it would teach me to live among the stars. Nobody told me it would also teach me how fast anger can move through a body. The alien who pulled my hair is named Patarn. He is tall, with a shell like polished stone, and eyes that never blink. On his planet, hair does not exist. His people have something called hatch fiber instead, and touching it without permission is treated as a serious offense. I know this because I studied his culture before I ever set foot on this station. I respected his customs from day one. He never bothered to learn mine. It started 3 weeks ago. He would walk close behind me in the hallway, always a little too close, always finding a reason to lift a strand of my hair between two claws, like he was inspecting a strange plant. The first time, I stepped away and said nothing, because I told myself he probably did not understand human boundaries yet. The second time, I turned and told him clearly to stop touching me. He tilted his head, amused, like I had said something cute and irrelevant. He told me hair was simply dead matter, and dead matter could not feel anything, so my objection made no sense to him. I explained it again, slower this time. I told him that even if the hair itself feels nothing, the scalp underneath it feels everything, and that touching a person without asking is not something we allow on Earth, no matter what species is doing the touching. He nodded like he understood. He did not understand. Today, in the middle of lunch, with a tray of food balanced in my hands, he reached out and pulled hard enough that my head snapped sideways, and my tray went crashing to the floor. Pain shot down my neck. My ears rang from the sound of shattering plates, and before I could even think about what I was doing, my hand had already swung through the air and knocked his claw away from my head. I stood up so fast my chair screeched across the floor. I told him, in a voice that did not sound like my own, that if he ever touched my hair again, he would regret it. The whole mess hall stared. Even the ventilation system seemed to hold its breath. Patarn looked shocked, maybe even a little ashamed, but before he could respond, a shadow fell over both of us. I looked up and saw someone I recognized instantly from the academy posters in the main hallway. General Voss, a decorated war hero from Tarn's homeworld, guest lecturer for the semester, and, as I would soon learn, Tarn's own uncle. He crossed the room in only a few long strides, his presence pulling every eye in the hall toward him. His voice came out low and heavy, like stone grinding against stone. He asked me if I understood who I was speaking to. He asked if I realized that threatening a student from his world, in front of an entire dining hall, was a serious matter. He called my reaction excessive. He called my anger childish. He said human customs did not outrank galactic order, and that I would apologize to his nephew immediately. I felt my whole body go cold and steady at the same time. I told him that his nephew had touched me without permission 3 separate times, that I had asked him to stop every single time, and that the third time he caused me real pain on purpose. I told him that where I come from, that kind of repeated behavior has a name, and it is not acceptable, no matter how much power the person doing it has. The general's eyes narrowed. He said my species clearly needed a lesson in respect, and then, without any warning, his hand shot toward my wrist. I do not think he meant to hurt me. I think he meant to grab my arm the way a teacher grabs a student who refuses to listen. The kind of movement meant to remind you who is in charge. But my whole body had already learned, over the last 3 weeks, exactly what it felt like to have someone reach for me without asking. My hand moved on its own. The sound of my palm meeting the side of his face echoed through the entire hall. For one long second, nobody breathed. I could hear my own pulse pounding in my ears. I could feel every single pair of eyes in that room locked onto me, waiting to see what would happen next. Somewhere behind me, a plate finally finished spinning on the floor and went still. The general straightened slowly. He rubbed his jaw with one clawed hand, his 4 eyes fixed on me in a way I could not read. I braced myself for the worst. I thought about how far I was from home, how alone I suddenly felt standing there, how quickly my entire future at this academy might be over. Then, to my complete surprise, he laughed. It was a deep, rasping sound that seemed to shake his whole chest, and it was the last thing I expected from him. He said that in 11 years on this station, nobody had dared to strike him unless he had ordered them to do it first. He said his nephew had ignored my boundaries 3 separate times, that I had warned him clearly every single time, and that when he himself moved to grab me by force, I had answered with the same amount of force, nothing more and nothing less. He said there was no cruelty in my eyes when I did it, only conviction. He called that the mark of someone who understands exactly where their limits are and refuses to let anyone cross them. Then he turned to his nephew, and his voice changed completely. It became sharp and cold. He told Parn that he had been raised with too much comfort and not enough discipline, and that he had nearly paid a heavy price for treating another living being like an object to study. He told him that respect is not something you are owed by default. It is something you earn by listening the first time someone tells you no. Prataran looked smaller than I had ever seen him. He apologized to me right there, in front of everyone, his voice shaking through every word. It was not a quick or careless apology. It was long, formal, and clearly uncomfortable for him, which somehow made it feel more honest. The general turned back to me one final time. He told me that starting that same day, every new student from his homeworld would receive training on human customs and boundaries before they were allowed anywhere near a human classmate. He told me that I would not face any punishment for what I had done, and that in fact, very few beings on this entire station had ever earned the right to strike him and walk away without consequence. He said I had earned exactly that. I did not get a medal. I did not get expelled either, which honestly felt like the biggest relief of my entire life. What I did get, over the following days, was something I had not expected at all. Students from every corner of the academy started treating me differently. Some looked at me with a kind of nervous respect. Others, mostly other human exchange students, came up to thank me, because apparently they had been dealing with similar situations and had been too afraid to speak up. Pratarn avoided me for almost a week. When he finally approached me again, he did not reach for my hair. He asked, quietly and carefully, if it would be acceptable for him to sit at the same table as me during lunch. I told him yes, as long as he remembered what he had learned. He nodded, and for the first time since I had met him, I believed that he actually understood. Word of what happened spread fast across the entire station, faster than I ever imagined it could. By the end of the week, students from species I had never even spoken to were nodding at me in the hallways, giving me space, asking permission before they came anywhere near me. It was strange to realize that one single moment of standing up for myself had changed the way an entire academy treated every human student on board, not just me. I think about that day often. I think about how easy it would have been to stay quiet, to let it go the first time, or the second, or even the third. I think about how much smaller I would have felt if I had let that moment pass without saying anything at all. Instead, I learned something about myself that no textbook could have taught me. I learned that respect is never given freely across the stars, no matter how advanced or powerful the person standing in front of you happens to be. It has to be demanded, clearly and firmly, the very first time someone forgets that you deserve it. And somewhere on that station, a general with 4 eyes and a voice like grinding stone still remembers the day a 17-year-old girl from Earth stood her ground against him, and he still tells the story to every new class of cadets who arrive, as a lesson none of them ever forget.